Francis, this great determination that God wanted his church rebuilding. And so he did. I'm Susan, and I'm a mother and a grandmother, a wife and a Franciscan. St. Francis was a wonderful young man who started out as the son of a merchant, and he had a lovely French mother who taught him songs of Provence. So Francis grew up singing and laughing and dancing, and he led a group of young chaps in his early teenage years, through the streets of Assisi. Francis was expected to join and wanted to join the local army when the Perusians decided they would take over Assisi. However, this young lad, full of enthusiasm, was captured and was in a dungeon for at least 12 months. And when he was released, he was ill, very ill, and his health never ever recovered from that.
He went to war and found that war isn't funny.
He returned home, much to the disappointment of his father, who said, "Well, Francis," we think, sort of style, "Well, Francis, if you're not going to work for me, if you're not going for the army, what are you going to do?" "Well," he said, "I'm just going to go and have a look around and see what's happening." Found himself in a church, a dilapidated church, San Damiano, and knelt there for want of nothing better to do, and thought, and then heard, as he thought, God saying, "Francis, rebuild my church."
Francis, rebuild my church.
Well, Francis, being a practical chap, decided, right, okay, I'll sell a bolt of my father's cloth, get the money, and we'll get the building materials, and we'll rebuild the church.
And he really felt called by God to rebuild his church. He thought at first that literally meant rebuilding a local church, but then he found that actually what God was calling him to do was to found a new order of people who would live out the gospel in a Christ-like fashion.
And eventually, one or two men decided they would follow him and join him. And so you finish up with this band of itinerants in scruffy robes, scruffy brown robes, dancing, singing, enjoying themselves, being pilgrims marching from or walking from one area to another, begging as they went along because he would not have money. Lady Poverty was his bride. And that was the start of the Franciscans.
Our aim is to build a community who accept Christ as Lord and Master.
He was going around begging, preaching, being joyful, praying, a lot of prayer, doing as Jesus did until 1209, when the Pope Innocent III finally had a vision and approved of Francis's rule of life for himself and his friars.
There's the famous occasion when he showed up to the Pope with a copy of the rule, and the Pope read it. It said, "This doesn't look like a rule to me. It's the gospel." And Francis more or less said, "Well, yes, that's what we're living by." And so the gospel, and a radical reading of the gospel, is at the heart of Francis. And he did often speak about wanting to walk in the footprints of Christ. I think he used the phrase, the marrow of the gospel. He wanted to take people to the heart of the matter. And, we'd use the word radical, going to the roots. And for me, this is the challenge and the inspiration of Francis.